What life lesson do you wish you knew sooner? Exercise isn't just for jocks. It's the key to getting the most out of life past your teenage years. Being fit opens so many doors, helps you with energy and depression. And even if you're a bookworm, exercise is a huge contributing factor to the development and maintenance of cognitive capabilities. And a little exercise is better than no exercise.
I remember when a friend of mine started going to the gym. He was mostly into video games. At first, it was tough for him. But gradually, he noticed he felt more energetic and focused, even during gaming sessions. It's interesting how getting fit can change your mindset. It wasn't about lifting heavy weights for him, just regular exercise made a difference. Now, he balances both worlds pretty well. Simple changes in lifestyle can have a big impact.
It's all about how you say it. For example, people hate being wrong. If you say something in a way that makes them seem wrong and stupid, they'll hate you, and you'll get nowhere. If you say it in a way that doesn't make them seem like idiots, their reason can evaluate the points more fairly. It's easiest to see when you're not involved in the argument, but often people are just looking for acknowledgement. I once saw an argument between my parents which looked like this. Statistics can be used to talk about society, but it doesn't necessarily imply anything about an individual. But we can talk about groups with statistics, but statistics don't tell us about the individual. They were both just looking for acknowledgement of their point.
I get what you're saying. I've seen similar moments with friends, where the debate got heated, but it was clear no one was really listening. They just wanted to be heard. Once I stepped in and pointed out that they were both valid in their own ways, the tension eased. It's funny how just shifting the focus can change the whole vibe of a conversation. People want understanding more than being right.
You don't need all that decorative shit for your house, and you certainly don't need to go into debt over it. Don't buy clothes that don't fit because you plan on losing weight. They may go out of style first. A small house in a good part of town is better than a big house in a bad part of town. Live well under your means if you can. Edit. One more. If you were smart about your spending, you can have a wine and caviar lifestyle on a bread and water budget.
Yeah, I've seen people go all out on their homes and stuff. My friend's always been about keeping it simple. He just rents a small place but really loves the area. He wears what fits, not what's trendy. He often says living below your means is the way to go. It's true, smart choices can lead to enjoying life without breaking the bank. Just eat what you like, and you'll do fine.
It's okay to not know what you want to do, as long as you do at least something while you're figuring it out. Not sure whether you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or an astronaut. At least try and learn a language or read as much as possible while you work whatever job to pay the bills. And talk to people. Talking to people, being honest with people, that will open up more doors for you than any kind of privilege ever could.
I can relate to that. When I was unsure about my career, I took up odd jobs and focused on learning new skills. I started conversations with different people, and those interactions led me to opportunities one never expected. It's true that exploring your interests while still hustling pays off in the long run. Just keeping an open mind and staying curious can make a big difference.
Start saving money as young as possible and always live below your means. This is a major key to living a stress-free adult life. Having a bunch of money stashed away is amazing because at some point in your life, you're probably going to hate whatever job you're doing. Being able to put in your 2 weeks the moment you realize you are less than 100% happy at that job, while being okay financially, is the most liberating feeling ever and makes the entire career experience way better.
Yeah, I've seen that play out. A friend of mine started saving early, just a bit every month. When he hit a rough patch at work, he didn't stress. He took a step back and found a new job that fit him better. It was all because he had the savings to back him up. Just living below his means made all the difference. It's a smart move for anyone, really.
Don't make it all about you. Take time to help others in some way, even if it's just telling someone nice shirt, making someone else feel good, helps to make you feel good. Just as an example, I went through a rough patch last year where I wasn't finding any meaning in my life. I started volunteering with a local food bank, and it really put my life into perspective. Also, when I saw someone with clothes/hair/car, etc. that I liked, instead of just thinking it, I told them. Not everyone accepts the compliment, but it makes me feel good to get that smile and thanks. That being said, accept that you can't please everybody and that not everyone is going to like you. In the long run, you'll be a lot happier.
That story hits home. I remember a time when I felt lost too. Helping out at a shelter made a difference, not just for them, but for me as well. Simple compliments made a good vibe. Sure, not everyone responded well, but those who did made it worth it. It's cool to realize you can't win everyone over, but that shouldn't stop you from being kind. Kindness comes back around.
Cheesy, but your biggest limitations are the ones you impose on yourself. Snap out of victim mode and take charge of your life. Chances are you're capable of more than you think. Things generally don't randomly happen to you. You either make them happen, the good stuff, or allow them to happen to you, the bad stuff.
I had a friend who always held back, thinking they weren't good enough. They missed out on opportunities because of that mindset. One day, they decided to try something new without overthinking. It turned out great, and they realized their limits were mostly self-imposed. It was a real shift for them, and it showed that sometimes you just need to take that first step to see what you're truly capable of.
When you fuck up at something, don't think, man, I really suck at this. Reframe it as, man, I'm getting better at this thing. Making mistakes is how you learn because you know not to do that thing again. Having this attitude will help with your persistence. If you throw enough hours at something, you are bound to get better at it.
I remember when I first tried to learn guitar. I messed up a lot, fingers all over the place. Instead of feeling frustrated, I started telling myself, okay, I'm getting better. Little by little, those mistakes turned into progress. It took time, but now I can play some decent tunes. Just needed to stick with it and not get discouraged by the errors. That mindset really helped.
Don't date someone, 1, who has an addiction problem, 2, who isn't taking care of themselves, not going to a doctor or a therapist when they need to, as well as not financially supporting themselves as an independent person, 3, who is unhappy and doesn't love themselves. You can be a great match, but this stuff will poison and ruin the relationship.
Yeah, I get that. A friend of mine was really into this person who had a serious addiction. They thought love could fix it, but it just made things worse. They both ended up frustrated and unhappy. Sometimes, no matter how good the connection seems, if someone isn't taking care of themselves, it's just not worth it. Better to focus on healthier relationships.
If she says, I am busy Friday, maybe some other time, it does not mean she is busy Friday and wants to go out some other time. It means she is not interested and is just attempting to be polite in her rejection. If she says, I am busy Friday, how about Saturday? It means she is busy Friday and wants to go out some other time.
I've definitely seen this kind of situation play out before. A friend of mine was kind of dense about reading signals. A girl he liked told him she was busy, and he took it as an invitation to ask her out again later. It didn't go well. Sometimes you just have to pick up on the clues people drop, instead of hoping for what you want to hear. Pretty straightforward.
Close your eyes. Now imagine you are in a hospital bed and 90 years old. Now imagine you are that 90-year-old wishing to be back in time, when you were many years younger. Imagine you, the 90-year-old, closing your eyes. Now open them. Hey, erase your second chance. Always helps me realize what I'm stressing about isn't that big of a deal and can be fixed. And if it can't, it probably still is not that big of a deal. Hope it helps.
That's an interesting perspective. It makes you think about priorities and what's really important in life. When you're looking back, a lot of problems seem smaller. It's a good reminder to not sweat the small stuff. Often, we get caught up in our worries, forgetting how trivial they can be in the grand scheme. It's nice to reflect and find meaning in those thoughts.
If you truly love someone and they truly love you back, they can still convince you to do things that aren't good for you. Just because you love someone, it doesn't mean you always need to make them happy. Sometimes love and practicality do not align. If you make yourself unhappy in the long run to make someone you love happy in the short run, you're not doing either of you a favor.
That's true. I've had a friend who always put their partner's needs first, even when it hurt them. They thought it was love, but it just led to resentment. Eventually, they realized that self-care matters too. It's not about being selfish, it's about finding balance. Sometimes making tough choices is better for both people involved. Love should uplift, not drain you.
Biggest life lesson I ever learned. Listen to what people tell you. I was given tons of good advice and had some important things spelled out for me by many people. I didn't listen. I thought my situation was different. I was different. I was somehow better and could deal with things in a different way or a better way. I was wrong. I was arrogant. I was stupid. It is as if I got on a train. As I am boarding, my friends and family are telling me that this train only goes to the North Pole. I laugh and let them know that I won't let it happen. I'll make a left turn and go to Hawaii.
It's funny how often we think we're the exception. I had a similar moment when I ignored advice about a job. Friends warned me it was a bad fit, but I was sure I could make it work. In the end, I realized the hard way they were right. Sometimes, listening to others is the best way to avoid a lot of unnecessary mistakes. Just a lesson learned the hard way.
My junior health teacher told me this in high school. You don't need to have all the answers when you're 16 to 18. It's perfectly fine if you don't know what you want to do in the future. I wish people would acknowledge this instead of constantly pressuring teens to do well in school, acting like their whole life depends on a couple of numbers. I understand school is important, but people over-exaggerate the impact high school will have on your life. If people had told me this sooner, maybe I wouldn't have been so depressed and confused.
It's true, that pressure can really weigh on you. I remember feeling lost during those years too. Sometimes, we just need to hear that it's okay to not have everything figured out. Life isn't just about grades or scores. It's a process, and figuring things out takes time. Acknowledging that could really help a lot of people feel a little more at ease.
Don't put emotional wants before educational commitments. I'm quite taken aback at how many others had been in a similar situation. I said it in the comments, but I'll say it again. If you made this mistake, it's okay, shit happens, but I hope you don't make a similar mistake again. But if you can relate to my situation, I'm glad you caught yourself before the plunge.
It's easy to get caught up in emotions, especially when priorities start to blur. I remember a friend who ignored classes for a significant other. It didn't end well, and they ended up regretting it. They learned the hard way to balance personal life with responsibilities. It's a lesson a lot of us go through, but recognizing it early can save some trouble. Just gotta keep those commitments in check.
A pound of fat on your body is equal to 3,500 calories. Eat 3,500 calories over the number of calories you burn, and you gain 1 pound of fat. Eat 3,500 under the number of calories you burn, and you lose 1 pound of fat. You can lose 1 pound per week simply by figuring out your TDE, total daily energy expenditure, and subtracting 500 calories per day. Then track your calories, and that's the maximum number you can eat. It's incredibly simple, but weight loss seemed like magic for the longest time. There were so many conflicting diets and plans and info that I had no idea what I was supposed to be eating or doing in order to be healthy. Turns out it's just a friggin' math problem.
I remember struggling with weight loss, thinking it was way more complex. I tried different diets, read countless articles, but nothing really clicked. Then I learned about TDE and counting calories. It was like a light bulb moment. Just some simple math and consistency made all the difference. It felt good to finally have a clear path instead of being overwhelmed by all the noise out there.
1. This too shall pass. I have found this knowledge extremely comforting and reassuring in times of sorrow and pain. During the great times, it reminds me to be present and enjoy the experience because it will not last forever. 2. You cannot always control your circumstances, but you can control your reaction. 3. Secure love for others needs to start from self-love. You cannot give to someone else what you will not afford yourself. 4. Be silly. There's nothing wrong with doing silly or odd things for your own entertainment, as long as it isn't at someone else's expense. 5. Small acts of kindness can have profound effects on the lives of others. 6. Admit when you're wrong. Also admit how you feel, even if it's hard. In my experience, consequences of honesty have always been easier to deal with than living a lie. 7. Forgive others. 8. Realize that for the most part you have everything it takes to change, and I wish I could too, and I can and will. 9. Appreciate what you have.
There was a time I felt stuck, waiting for things to change. A friend reminded me that this too shall pass. It hit me, in good times and bad, just being present is key. Self-love allowed me to support others better. One day, I did something silly just to lighten the mood, and it worked. Small acts of kindness from others changed my day too. Honesty always feels easier than pretending. Just have to appreciate the now.
You only get jobs from knowing someone, or directly applying to a company, or being recruited either through a headhunter or directly. Want ads, and the various electronic equivalents are no more than lottery tickets. Far more time is wasted on them than they are worth. The masses play, but only a few win. The only real exception to these rules are job fairs at schools. That is a time when employers are actually seeking employees. Use your contacts. Use nepotism. This is the way the country works. Don't be tricked into thinking that these are not a noble or true way to get a job.
I remember when I was looking for my first job. I sent out tons of applications, but it felt pointless. Then I reached out to a friend who worked at a company. He mentioned an opening and helped me get an interview. Turned out, knowing someone made all the difference. Job fairs were useful too, but having a connection really opened doors. It's just how things go in the job market.
How to interact successfully with girls, and how are the common social laws for relationships. In my teenager years, I was shy and a social without any real friend and any social interaction with girls apart my parents. Not because I was ugly, but simply I didn't know how to interact with them. Then I met one girl who looked throughout the appearances, who looked deep in me and enjoyed for who I am. Obviously, I fell in love with her some time later, but I played my cards totally bad, lol. I wish I had someone like a male friend or a father who simply told me, don't do this, girls don't like this, but this, don't react in this way, blah blah blah. 8 years have passed. I'm totally a new man, had a lot of girls, currently have a lot of close friends, changed totally from a social to extrovert, but I still love that girl. I still think that if I knew in advance that some basic things, I could have the love of my life now.
It's interesting how experiences shape us. Back in my teenage years, I was in a similar boat, just really awkward around girls. I remember meeting someone who actually saw past my shyness. We got close, but I didn't know how to navigate those feelings. Now, looking back, I see how just a bit of advice could have made things different. It's funny how those early moments stick with you.
Oh, this one is a breeze. I wish I had known that there were many people who would find a hairy, husky, handy, masculine man the bomb. I had bought into that damn South Beach metrosexual, overly trimmed, overly built ideal, and thought I was an anomaly for being nowhere near it. Now I know a red plaid shirt, a nicely trimmed beard, a husky but strong body, and knowing one's way around power tools is the hottest thing some people can imagine in a boyfriend. Wasted 7 years of my early life trying to fit in when I already had a place to fix just the way I am. A bear. A big old bear.
It's interesting how perceptions change over time. This person realized they spent years trying to fit a mold that didn't suit them. They found confidence in embracing their natural self, which many actually appreciate. The journey to self-acceptance can be long, but in the end, being genuine is what truly attracts people. In the end, it's all about being comfortable in your own skin.
Very true. I had a longtime friend from school who was toxic because her mom was an alcoholic and rich, so she learned this cycle of lashing out at people and saying mean things, then buying them presents to make up for it. I tried to be patient with her up through our adult life, but when we were around 26, 27s, she had a baby. She got mad because I made a MySpace post. Yes, it was that long ago, promoting her mom's business. It wasn't anything crazy, just said I got product at business, employee was awesome. You guys should go see him. For some reason that pissed her off, and she left a voicemail saying she's embarrassed to have me around her friends, and I'm not allowed to see her daughter all because I'm gay. She's tried to contact me a couple times since, saying she just had a bad day when she said that, but that was completely unacceptable. I am much better without having to deal with her emotional roller coasters.
That sounds rough. It's tough when a friendship turns toxic, especially due to family issues. It's clear you tried to support her, but sometimes people's reactions are just too much to handle. It's good you recognized your worth and moved on. Surrounding yourself with positive influences makes a big difference. It's all about finding people who appreciate you, not drag you down.
People say this time and time again, but in a small town, with 50 people around the same age as you, it's hard to leave those friends no matter how toxic they are. If you do, you're completely alone, no one to socialize with, etc. You'll have no one, and the choice between no one and toxic people is hard.
Yeah, that sounds tough. I remember a friend who felt the same way. They had a small circle, but every hangout was just filled with negativity. It was either put up with the bad vibes or face loneliness. Eventually, they chose to distance themselves. It was hard at first, but over time, they found new friends who brought more positivity into their life. It's tough to make that leap, but sometimes it's necessary.
It's weird, every time I have fucked up, it's because I did the opposite of what my parents have told me to do. My dad has been through all kinds of addictions, emotional, and health issues in life, and never knows what to do for himself to be happy, but always knows what I need to do to be happy. I have started taking his advice a bit more seriously, and it has actually paid off. Obviously, I'm careful, but my parents usually know what is best for me. I'm 25 and still learning from them.
It's interesting how that works. Sometimes, we ignore the advice we get from those who care about us, only to realize later they might have had a point. Your journey of learning from your parents, especially with their own experiences in mind, shows growth. Taking their advice seriously could really help you find your way. It's a good reminder that wisdom can come from unexpected places, even if it's from our own family.
It's still good to listen to what your parents have to say. Growing up, so many of my friends just ignored everything their parents had to say. Now, obviously, I didn't always agree with my parents, but I try my best to listen to what they had to say. They lived through everything, and in some cases more than I did. They know what it's like to be in high school. They know what it's like to be a teenager. On the other side of the spectrum, parents should listen to their kids more often, but that's another topic.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. A lot of friends just shut their parents out, but I always found it helpful to hear their views. They've been around, seen things, so they've got some experience. I didn't always agree, but those talks gave me perspective. It's a two-way street though. Parents could stand to hear their kids out more too. Balance is key, I guess.
I worked in New York for almost a decade in a high-pressure, high-stakes, highly paid job, non-finance. When I graduated college and moved there, I saw all these people in fine suits and clothes always on their BlackBerries and doing lunch meetings at ridiculously expensive restaurants, and thought that, man, how do they do it? How do they have their shit so together? After a decade of working with them, perhaps becoming one of them, I realized that these people you see on the street and assume as successful are either workaholics, alcoholics, severely depressed and on medication, lonely, have really fucked up kids and marriage situations. You would not believe the number of married men with kids I met who go whoring/massage parlors every week, or the number of women I work with who go home, kick into their pajamas, and drink a whole bottle of Belvedere till they get knocked out.
It's interesting how we see success from the outside and assume it's all put together. I had a friend who worked in a similar environment. He always seemed fine, but later I found out he was really struggling with the pressure. He'd keep it together at work but would get home and just crash. It puts things into perspective. You can't always tell what's going on behind the scenes. Everyone has their battles.
As a vet tech in what was basically a hospice practice for 6 years, I so very much agree. The only time, though, they were few, that it went okay, and I understood the decision was a woman whose husband was out of town. She was beside herself, but didn't think she could handle going home alone afterwards. The dog had been coming to see us 1 to 2 times a week for over a year, and he and I were really close, so it was as if he had a family member with him. Not the love that outshone all the rest, but he was surrounded by known love.
That sounds really touching. Being close to a pet for that long creates a bond. I get how having someone there, especially during tough times, can make a difference. It's comforting for both the owner and the pet. Knowing you helped that dog feel secure in his last moments is something meaningful. It must have been tough, but also rewarding in its own way.
To expand on this, if you have elderly or sick people in your lives, please don't pull away from them towards the end so you can remember them as they were before. That is horribly selfish. Love hurts sometimes, and being there for those who are about to succumb to old age or illness is one of those times. But you will have far fewer regrets if you invest in them instead.
It's true. I've seen friends shy away from tough situations with family. They think it's easier, but it just creates regret later. My grandfather was sick for a while, and I made sure to spend time with him. It was hard, but those moments mattered. Just sitting with him, listening to his stories, made a difference. It's about being present, even when it hurts. That's where the real connection is.
It's all about how you say it. For example, people hate being wrong. If you say something in a way that makes them seem wrong and stupid, they'll hate you, and you'll get nowhere. If you say it in a way that doesn't make them seem like idiots, their reason can evaluate the points more fairly. I learned this playing Dota.
I get that. In Dota, communication is key. If you come at someone in a mean way for messing up, they're not likely to listen. But if you explain things calmly, they'll be more open to feedback. It changes the whole vibe and helps the team adapt. It really is all in how you present your thoughts. Makes for a better experience overall.
If you say something in a way that makes them seem wrong and stupid, they'll hate you, and you'll get nowhere. I'm a software developer, and more than once I've seen coworkers say, "You're not understanding what I'm saying," which puts the burden on the listener and not the speaker. It makes the listener seem stupider or denser than the speaker, when in reality, communicating is a two-way street. If someone truly isn't understanding what you're saying, you might just need to change the way you're saying it. Conversely, if you're not getting something, it helps a ton to say, "I'm just not getting it. Could you explain it a different way?" That usually will remove defensiveness from a conversation.
I get that. I'd been in meetings where someone just didn't get the point. Instead of just blaming them, it helps to rephrase things a bit. I remember a coworker who would get frustrated and say things like, "You're not getting it." It turned the whole discussion sour. But when someone asked for a different explanation, it eased the tension. Good communication really is about being open and willing to adjust.
If you say something in a way that makes them seem wrong and stupid, they'll hate you, and you'll get nowhere. Hey, wait, that's me. For a long time, I didn't even realize that most people would get knocked off by that, because the majority of people didn't make a big deal out of it. And I just have to be the person who is always right. And I am always right. God damn it.
I get that feeling. There was a time when I thought being right was everything. I'd argue for hours, not realizing it pushed people away. Eventually, I learned that sometimes it's better to listen than to prove a point. It changes the vibe and keeps friendships intact. Being right doesn't matter as much as being kind. Takes a while to learn that, but it makes life easier.
Reminded me of my younger days when my teachers and parents keep telling me that no man is an island, and I should be trying my best to interact and have more friends no matter what. They're not wrong, but sometimes I just feel more comfortable being alone. People shouldn't criticize about someone else who just chose to be alone.
I get that. It's like people don't always realize that being alone can be a choice, not a punishment. Sometimes you just need space to think or recharge. I had a friend who preferred solo activities too. He showed me that enjoying your own company can be pretty fulfilling. It's cool to have a balance between being social and just chilling by yourself when you want.
Unfortunately, society undervalues introversion and overvalues extroversion. It's perfectly fine to be alone, far better than making someone else responsible for your happiness. I used to enter or stay in relationships because I was lonely. It took me many years to realize that I am responsible for my own sense of security and happiness.
I get that. I used to feel pressured to socialize a lot, thinking it was the only way to be happy. But over time, I learned to enjoy my own company. It's nice to chill alone and focus on what makes you happy, without relying on others. Being comfortable in your own space is a skill, and it's a lot healthier than trying to please everyone else.
That's true. I have a job that I hate, but I earn over $125K. Because I'm careful with money, not tight-fisted, just not wasteful, I have about the same amount saved and no debts. I plan on quitting the job I hate as soon as I get back from my overseas holiday, heading off early in May. I'm in my mid-40s and looking at starting my own business, so my savings buffer will allow me to spend 2 to 3 years without drawing a salary. Edit a word.
It's interesting to hear about your situation. Earning a good salary but being unhappy at work is common. It's cool that you're saving though. Quitting that job for a holiday sounds refreshing. Starting a business can be risky, but having savings gives you a safety net. It's a big step, but it seems like you're planning it well. Hope the overseas trip helps you recharge before making that change.
The one about the world starting where your comfort zone ends has really had a lot of meaning in my life. I used to be embarrassed to talk to people, but then I read something similar to this, and it just clicked in my head. I think it was something along the lines of, you'll never accomplish what you're too scared to try. And that is why I stopped having a comfort zone. I make some people very uncomfortable because nothing makes me uncomfortable.
It's interesting how a simple idea can change your perspective. I had a similar experience where I used to avoid social gatherings. One day, I decided to just step out of my comfort zone. It felt weird at first, but over time, I found it easier to talk to people. Now, I don't think twice about striking up conversations, even if it makes others a bit uneasy. Being comfortable with discomfort does help.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.